or invitation coming here, and it is one session number 13, if I'm not mistaken, on Virtual Hackalong. And every Wednesday we are gathering, just talking about the architect design and all deep technical topics about the Holochain. So, and recently we recognized we have a bunch of questions about the Holoport when we are designing application, architecting application. All the time, developers from a forum or here asking question about how the scenario is working on a Holoport, how the Holoport support us. So we decided to invite you, and thank you very much for coming, accepting our invitation. If you are ready, we created a list of questions that we can start the question. So, fantastic. The first one, it's about the the life cycle of a request response and how public key and private key is supposed to be maintained. It means I don't install the application, Holochain. I'm supposed to use Holoport. How one life cycle of request and response is working from A to Z, and how public key and private key is supposed to be managed, because I'm not saving anymore my public key and private key.
Okay, so let me get this right. We are talking about a hosted instance. So a user is going to be using a hosted instance of an application. And the question is, the application is supposed to do a send receive. And how does that work? The HDK send receive, correct?
No. I think we are asking about a request. If I understand the question correctly, Hedayat, a request from the front end to the Holoport,
Yes.
and then back, and also about where are the public private keys stored on that process as well. How does that work? So no send direct message inside the Holochain application, but from the front end to the Holoport.
Okay. Okay. So the question is, if I'm using my browser, I log into a page. It is running a web app, the Holochain application, obviously on the Holoport. How do I make a call, Zoom call, and how does it respond back? Okay. Can I ask a general question before that? How much information do we have about Chaperone, Envoy, and any sort of the hosting architecture?
Assume minimal.
Okay.
Very minimal.
Okay, so this is actually a long answer, because it's like I have to talk through the entire architecture sort of. So I'll try to. I won't go into detail for every piece, but because there's better documentation that we can actually read and understand this better. I wish that is out there. I probably can get that to you guys when you all request it. We can do that. So I'll just talk through the architecture. Right now, what you do is, so right now when you make an application, a UI, we use usually we use the HC Web SDK, right? HC Web client to make calls to the DNA and respond back. In the same way, for hosted applications, we have something called the Web SDK, which is basically meant to talk to another layer, which is called, it's an iframe, which is called the chaperone, which basically manages your keys and identity. And I'm just going to talk through the entire architectures and then loop it back. So then there's the chaperone, which actually then can talk to a resolver, which now what the resolver does is actually it maps your host to an application, meaning the ID for your application, your DNA. So what the chaperone is doing, it can actually just, it knows which application you want to connect to. And it can tell you back, okay, these are the hosts that are actually hosting this application. And it will prompt you with one host saying, okay, talk to this guy. It will come back to the chaperone. Now the chaperone gets connected to this host box. And in the host box, you have something called Envoy that is running. And now what Envoy does is actually, navigates you to actually make your call to the locally running conductor on the Holo port. And that's basically the general architecture flow for this. So as a UI developer, all you have to do is actually use the web SDK node module. And I think that it's already public. We could probably look into that. I would not recommend using it right now, but it is good information to progress because now the hosting infrastructure is still very immature. It's still progressing, but that's good information to start. So it's basically just use this web SDK to make a call to the conductor essentially, but it goes through multiple layers between it. Is there anything in that entire loop that y'all want me to talk more about?
Yes, managing public key and private key.
Okay, so what that is, so chaperone is where this piece lies. Chaperone is an iframe that will lie in your UI itself. So when you, the way it actually works is your UI actually pulls in the web SDK, which actually uses something called COM, which is a cross origin messaging bus, basically, which actually talks to Chaperone, which is another iframe, which is a secure iframe. And that's where your keys are generated. And that's where your keys lie. So it lies on the browser side itself. It is not on a Holo port or anywhere. It's on your browser, but it's in the secure iframe. And yeah, that's where it lies. And every Zoom call that you make goes through this iframe, and that's where it gets signed and goes to get committed. Goes through the entire process, that is the envoy, conductor, and then gets committed in the conductor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, couple clarifications here. So I know that some part of this infrastructure is run on Cloudflare service runners. I don't know the exact name, but yeah. So is this the map between the application and the host, or what are the Cloudflare services doing?
Yeah, so that is the resolver that I spoke about. The resolver is a service worker. That chaperone will talk. The chaperone talks to the resolver to resolve itself to say, okay, which host do I want to talk to? And that's the service worker that you just mentioned.
Okay, perfect. And for me, just another question about this whole flow, I think it's pertinent here, which is, imagine that I do a request and then the Zoom call actually does a commit entry. That commit entry commits the entry, but it needs to sign it, right? But the Holoport doesn't have the private key. Does it go back to the front end and then get signed, or is there some pre-signing that happens?
Okay, so how that works is your chaperone actually handles that. Your chaperone actually signs the payload, and right now we have a service in Envoy that is actually called the wormhole. It's called the magic wormhole essentially for now. It's just a play in words, but it's actually where what is used to actually sign your payloads. But that's where it happens. So when your message passes through Chaperone, the Chaperone basically signs your payload, and then it progresses to Envoy. And Envoy knows what to do because Envoy knows that you are a hosted agent. So the conductor does not sign. Usually in a regular Holo chain instance, your conductor signs everything. But at this point, your conductor knows that I'm actually talking to a hosted instance. So I don't need to sign this. It's already coming in signed. And that's how that happens.
Perfect. I'm good in this question, Hedayat. Thanks, Joel.
Okay. Any other questions about it?
Yeah, about the cycle and public key. The first one is almost done. The next question, which is really well known inside the community, about the privacy, data encryption, privacy in the Holoport. What is the whole story? It means data is open. It is the flat data on a Holoport. GDP, how it's going to be supported. So is there any way for encryption? It means especially if there are a bunch of holoport, the data is going to be replicated, how the scenario is working, and is there any option to support encryption or privacy? For example, encrypted, we have an entry type encrypted. This one is working, not working. Give us please the whole package about the privacy that we see what's happening, the data protection and privacy on Holoport.
Okay, so the answer to that, I can't give a perfect answer to that because we haven't reached that level of critical mass use. So we aren't focused on data privacy on a holoport yet. But the best way to do it obviously is right now, the way you mentioned, having the entry type encrypted, because that basically encrypts any entry that you actually put into the commit into the DHT, which does work. Was there a resource that said it didn't work?
No, actually, mostly it is such sort of culture, mainly when we are designing application, we look at the entry as a private if there is no need to be in DHT, and a public if it's supposed to be DHT. Mostly because nobody putting the entry. I asked this question on purpose. Entry type encrypted, it is one solution for the reason of privacy on Holoport. Is that true?
Yes, it is true, because the entry type encrypted is a public entry, which means you can actually commit it into your chain and then have someone else read it, but only particular people read it. People who actually know how to decrypt this encrypted message. And that's how you can actually share information, but also not have anyone read information that is roaming around in the DHT.
That is great. It means my data is inside my source chain in a holoport in the entry type encrypted. It is encrypted by my paid key, public key, private key. It means the owner of the host can see it but cannot read it because it is encrypted.
Yes.
When from the browser, end user send a request to read the data is gonna be read and opened by my private key on demand, and it means where the data is gonna be encrypted when the conductor reading send it for me, or it is coming to the encrypted entry. It's coming to my browser and opening on my client. When it's happening actually.
So it is happening when the conductor responds. So when the conductor is responding back to a Zoom call saying, I want to read this encrypted information, that's when it gets unencrypted, meaning decrypted.
Okay. Guillaume, do you have anything here? I can enter to the conductor question. How the conductor writing? Before that one, do you have any question?
No. Do you want to skip the different private keys? That one?
Okay, go ahead. I didn't
Okay.
see.
Okay. So a slightly different topic. On Holochain, when we are running Holochain applications, we are basically assuming the same user, but many devices, like for example, my laptop, my mobile phone, my whatever. So we need to have different private keys, so different agents altogether, right? On Holo, that's not the case because I'm assuming joining from different devices always ends up in the same private key. So can we assume the same agent address for the same user, the same person using the apps, or different instances will have different agent addresses for the same user?
No, it will have the same agent ID because the way you create an agent ID is you use your email, your password, and the we call it the HHA ID. That's the hosting ID, which is basically the HAP ID. and those are the information that you use to actually create your keys. So we can use uh, that same information on any device to create the same instance.
Hmm. Okay, but in different applications, the same user is going to have different agent IDs if the
Yeah.
app ID is used to generate the private key.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Received my answer. Thanks.
So, you're welcome. Thank you to again. We are gonna start. You are not tired, yes?
Oh, I'm not.
Fantastic. If you need a few couple of minutes or second to drink a water, please feel free to let us know, you know?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you. So just one point for the guys. Guys, if in each question that we are asking, you have a point, please write it down. Do not forget, okay? We are gonna come back to the community question soon. It means your question. We are gonna open whole topic about the conductor. We have a bunch of questions as a package of conductor on Holoport, okay? The title can be how the conductor is working, how many conductor is working, and how the bridging is working in the conductor scenario as a package of conductor on a Holoport. Would you please explain, maybe in one shot you can just answer and cover all of
Just one minute. Okay. So we want to know how does a conductor run on on a Holoport essentially.
them? Yes.
Um, well, wait. I'm. I don't think I completely get the question because I feel because when you're running a conductor on a holoport, it runs like any usual conductor. It is basically you just when you're running a local conductor, you just do holochain -c and give your config file, and that's how you spin up your conductor. It's basically the same thing, and that's how it runs on a holoport as well. There is nothing special about it. Uh, so is that the question, or is the question more than that?
Let me step by step go to detail. If there is a holoport with a bunch of applications, how many conductor is running to support all of them?
One
One?
conductor. Yes.
One holoport, one conductor.
Yes.
For all user, for all application.
Yes.
Fantastic. So number two, how the bridging is working.
Okay. How it's okay. I think I get the bridging question. The bridging question is, okay, if I'm running one application on this guy's holoport and I'm running another application on another holoport, how does the bridging work between these two different conductors? And the thing to note over here is bridging doesn't work between conductors. Bridging works between applications, which means both your applications that need to bridge have to be mentioned in the config of that one conductor. Which means if I'm running application A and application B on one conductor, I also need to mention it in the config itself saying, I need to bridge this application to this application. If you see the config for the conductors, it's actually mentioned over there. Also, a simple way to understand this is when you're thinking of hosting applications or apps, you don't of it as one DNA and one UI. You think of it as your entire application, right? You think of it as, let's say I have one UI which talks to probably two DNAs, and probably those two DNAs don't talk to each other. They just be two different DNAs. And in this instance, my app is one UI with two DNAs. That is my app bundle. So when I'm giving, when I'm mentioning what is my app bundle to the Holo hosting app, when I'm actually registering my app, I actually mention all of this. I mentioned this is my DNA, this is my DNA, and I need to bridge this DNA with this DNA. If you see the Holoscape, Holoscape model that was created for locally running conductors and locally running Holochain. In that, when you create an app bundle, you actually mention all that details. You mention your different DNAs and your bridgings. So when a host actually decides, he does not decide to to host one DNA. He actually decides to host one hap, which means when he decides to host a hap, he has to decide to host both the DNAs, which actually then gets configured in his conductor saying, okay, I'm running this DNA and this DNA and this DNA bridges to the second DNA. So bridging works just as, there's nothing fancy about it. It actually works just as simple as running it locally because you are running both the DNAs together.
I have a question there then. What about very common DNAs like personas that a lot of other DNAs don't want to install anew in their bundles, but actually they want to bridge to?
Well, they have to mention it in their bundles because if they're bridging to it, they have to mention it in their bundles.
Okay, and then only the holoports running the personas app can also install those additional DNAs.
Yes.
Okay,
They
is that
have that choice? Yes.
okay? Is that already like the mentioning but not installing DNAs feature is already available on the conductor configuration, or like I haven't seen it, I think, or maybe I'm misunderstanding something.
Oh, wait, I'm not understanding that question either. You said mentioning a DNA, but not installing a DNA. Does that exist in conductors?
Yes.
So installing a DNA essentially means, it depends what your definition of installing a DNA is, honestly, because you can have your DNA in your conductor, but you can have no instance running it, which means you're not running that DNA. So if that's installing a DNA, then yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Like I'm curious as to how, but maybe you can talk and you can send us some resources to show us how to do it. I'm curious about how you reference the persona's DNA, but the persona's instance already running, but not installing a new persona's instance with your bundle because you want all the information already that that person already has committed.
Yeah, it's just as simple as, because you're using the same DNA, right? Your persona's DNA is going to be the same DNA that you add to your bundle. So you're probably running an old persona's DNA that we've already used for ages, and you're adding that same DNA. So when the conductor decides to install an application, it can check whether it already has this DNA installed. And all it has to do is then add this one bridge code, bridge config saying this agent, this ID of this app, connect to this ID of this new app. And it just bridges to this old application. That's all.
Okay, perfect. That's actually a very important point. Thanks.
Yeah.
Tats, would you please ask your question about the question you asked inside the forum?
Yes. Okay. Okay. So my question would be, so I have a question regarding HDK API send and HDK API receive in the Holo setting. So am I right in assuming that the conductor running on Holoport will always be online? And if this is right, is it correct to assume that, for example, we can use HDK API emit signal in the receive callback and say send push notifications to mobile user of the app?
Well, that is a good question, because no, we should never always assume that holoports are running online all the time. Because if you're connected to, let's say, my holoport, and I decided randomly, because it's humanly run. It is not some server that is running that is always going to run. I can just randomly decide that I want to shut my holoport down, and we honestly don't have control over that. So no, we should not assume that a holoport is always running to do that. But there is this is a good business use case wherein we can actually be state it when we actually decide where to host or to choose our hosts. We can actually decide in our criterias, we can mention, right now it's not a feature, I'm just telling you this can be a future feature, where we actually can tell that we want this amount of uptime for our application. So when we decide that in our requirements, then we can decide, okay, now we are just going to consider that our app is always going to be up, or it's going to be up for at least 23 hours in a day or something like that, whatever we decide. But no, while I'm designing a general application, if I don't have that requirement made already, I would not assume that my Holoport is online all the time.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. There's so many other ways for notifications. I think Arthur has like so many talks about it too. There's like different ways that we can actually implement push notifications and notifications itself. Yeah, I think we can probably point you to the those sort of resources too for that.
Okay. That would be amazing. Thank you.
Again, the question number 678 somehow can be.
Yeah, I think a good follow-up here is how is data redundancy guaranteed in Holo? So imagine I commit some private entry and then the Holoport is shut down by the Holoport owner or whatever, and I want to still retrieve that entry. How is that working?
Okay, so sorry. So in the current implementation, well, right now, I think that is not for current alphas. So I don't have a good precise answer for you. We have spoken about it, and the general idea is that we have a redundancy of 5 holoports in hash spaces that are completely different. So it never comes in one. What's the word for it? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the word. When the DHT splits into multiple hash spaces, I forget.
Sharding.
Sorry, yeah, sharding. So different shards. The way we are planning to do it is we have data redundancy in different holoports in at least 5. Well, the number right now, last I heard was 5 different shards, and that's how the data redundancy is planned to be happening. But I don't have a good answer for you for that. I know that's a very generic answer, honestly. That's because we aren't focused. We've not started work on that, so I don't have a good answer.
Game 6 and 7, if you think they are related right now here.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, this question is it's kind of a mix. So can we will be able to run the same Holochain application, but in some devices it's running on a Holoport, and in some devices it's running on a laptop or I don't know, another device, and it's the same application and they can talk transparently to each other? Could that be the case?
Yes, that's totally the case. You can run a locally running Holofuel, Holochain application on your local just regularly, and on the host until it's using the same DNA hash and it's connected to the same Synth2 server. You're fine. It will run as one application.
Awesome. One question I have here, maybe related. Is there any possibility that we can say Holochain installed on a mobile, that we can say the all DHT holder, it's going to be that specific guy, some Holoport. Others can just easily join without holding part of DHT. Is there any possibility for this scenario? For example, I created application. I'm telling UL and Guillaume, Lily, Tats, all of you can join the DNA, but you are on again. This is two guys with this address just hosting the whole version of DHT. You are just joining, query the DHT, and play the game inside the DHT, but you are not holding any data of the DHT. It means thank you. Other guys are gonna serve the DNA data. Is there any possibility?
No, that's not a possibility. We do have a data redundancy level that we can add to the conductor, but we cannot decide who holds and what they hold. That's not a it's not a possibility in Holochain. No.
Okay. Yeah, I think that. Well, thank you so much, Joel. This is amazing. So I think that we are coming to a close on the conductor side. Maybe one of the interesting topics for us still is how does the admin interface work, and how is the same process, is the process of installing cloning DNAs and so on the same as in normal Holochain apps, or as you are running in a Holoport, are there some other steps involved?
So the question is there a different way to clone an application on a Holoport?
Yes, and more generally, the admin interface as well, because you may be adding a bridge, or you may be doing some of the admin interface stuff as well.
Okay, so you're telling me you build an application that actually needs access to the admin port.
Yeah.
Can you give me sort of an example for that? Why would you need admin access?
So for example, Leap is the application that Hedayat and Nastasia and Josh and other members of the community are moving forward. And in that application, there are some courses, and every course is its own DHT. So when you want to create a new course, you get the template DNA for the course, you set some parameters, and you clone that DNA. And then you need to actually instantiate scenarios like that.
Okay, so your UI is manipulating a conductor to create a new clone of the DNA.
Exactly. It means the code of the DNA, there are some property. We are setting the property and then cloning. It means it's gonna be like a new universe. Nastasia, right now, if you think you need to add something to question, please go ahead, and then you can ask. Do you want to add something extra to the question?
I just wanted to add the description to the use case. Considering the architecture of applications that we build on Holochain, it seems to me that the majority of applications would be relying on feature of being able to spin multiple DNAs. So in my understanding, there would be more applications that require admin interface than there are applications that would work well without it. So that's all.
Okay. Well, that's a good question, but I don't think we've spoken about a use case like that yet for hosting, especially because whenever we think about spinning up a different DNA, it's usually because we want to run it privately and locally. We do not want it to be hosted in any sense, because that's always the idea when we like a use case of let's have the most simplest use case would be I want to create a private document and all my DNA template is just basically spin up a new DNA to have just write information into the DNA, which is basically my document. It's like the most simplest thing ever. And if I want an application like that, I do see a use case where we probably it can be used for hosting, but I don't think that is there right now. And I think in the current state of hosting, we do not have access to an admin port, which means from a UI, you cannot make a direct call to the conductor admin. You have to always make Zoom calls because it goes through the entire process of conductor to the chaperone, which actually you need to make a call to a particular Zoom itself. You cannot communicate to the admin port, but yeah, I should get back to you on these on this question. It's a brilliant question.
The thing we implemented, it is data access. For example, just imagine YouTube channel or like a Udemy. I can create a I can set my property to the DNA and clone it.
Yes.
Then it is a new DNA. Okay, I can put some content and we also implemented a ticket-based system. Okay, users supposed to go and do a payment and come to the DHT with a ticket. And in the validation, initialization, it means at the beginning, we are validating joining user based on the ticket. If the ticket is valid, then we are allowing the user to come inside to DHT and read the data. If the ticket is invalid, we are telling, no, you are invalid. It means by this property, we are going to have a new feature named data access by a new DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think we should probably should have someone more talk about this. But right now, I would say for hosting, we do not have access to the admin port, which means in a hosted interface, we can create a new clone of DNA. But if we have access to if we somehow get access to this admin port, we can do the regular process. There won't be any there won't be any special way to make a clone of the DNA. It would be the same. Just change a property and clone it, essentially.
Thank you. So, Guillaume, which remaining question you are gonna select? A mobile, I think you will answer, or number 13. Huh?
Yeah, I think we are done with the conductor. Actually, maybe in the chat, Sid and
Yes.
Anastasia were still a little unclear on the bridging. Sorry.
Sid, would you please clarify your question yourself? So what is in your mind that you didn't receive answer?
So let's say I'm using personas and an app A on one Holoport, and now I install a new app B, which is on another Holoport. And if that app B also needs persona, does that mean personas will get installed on this new Holoport as well?
Yes, because your second app, you defined the criteria for the second app as personas as a requirement for that second app.
Yeah. So how would I show up in the DHT from the other Holoport? The same agent? Like, won't that start causing conflicts, or it'll be a new agent ID? And how would that work?
It will be a new agent ID, which means your persona will be different. Which means you have two different personas, one on this Holoport, one on another Holoport.
Yeah.
The answer you are seeking is in DeepKey. That DeepKey binds all of this together. So DeepKey will essentially tell you that this key that you created and a new key that you created both exist and are you itself.
So it's the same person. Yeah.
The same person, which will then tell basically personas that agent 1 and agent 2 is said.
Yeah. So basically, DeepKey would be pretty much on every Holoport. Like
it will be, yes, it is. For the new version of Holochain, we are sort of trying to create it as I keep forgetting the word, but more of not a built-in feature, but like a very critical feature that you would have to run with your conductor.
And the data of all DeepKey are gonna be synced. It means any user profile or the key that I have, I can query all of them. They see each other, or
you can query the keys, but you won't know whose keys and they are. And also they are public keys, so it doesn't matter. You're not going to have private keys on the DHT. You're just going to have public keys. which means, well, you're having public keys in DHT anyway. Also, you can query them, but you won't be able to point it to a particular person, saying this is the guy who committed, well, this is the guy who owns this key.
Sid, please continue to finish your question.
So, just along those lines, anything related to bridging that you think starts getting messed up on Holoport as opposed to just running it on a holochain on a conductor?
No, not really,
Yeah. Because I think with the deep key solution, I think it solves for the problem of not having that DNA on every holoport. Yeah.
yes,
I think that's
yeah.
all.
The more we start building, the more we all will realize how crucial deep key is going to be. And I mean, honestly, after 10, 15 users, there is no way to build an application without deep key, because if you want to scale it, we need deep key.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Jakob, do you have any remaining question you would like?
I think it was partially answered, but just to clarify, so the use case when we would want to have a few holoports within exactly the family or the city or the town, would we need to fork our holofuel in order to leave it local? Or is there a way to go about it differently?
Okay, so the question is, if I want to have a particular zone in which I'm running one DNA, so let's say Holo Fuel. So if I want to run Holo Fuel only in my city, right now I stay in Austin. So let's say Austin.
Yeah, for example, like that.
Do I have to fork Holo Fuel to have that? Yes, yes, you do have to do that, because and it is not your circle doesn't matter on where you live at all. It matters on who is using that, which means if I suddenly decide you spin it up in your wherever you live, and I run that same DNA, I can connect to you. There is nothing stopping me, unless you have some block in your code itself, that your DNA itself, that tells do not accept this agent that comes from some weird place, unless who does not have this capability token or something like that. Yeah, so yes, you have to fork it, and it does not depend on geographical locations. It depends on who you want to give it to. So if you give it to 15 agents, you can tell that you do have to fork it, first of all, because you do need a new DHT that you want to connect to, because you cannot use the same DHT, because that's what the world will be using. So you cannot split yourself. You do need a new DNA hash. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And is there a way to then bridge to the original holofuel or like the global holofuel with such a fork instance or sub network, let's say?
There is a way, but the thing is, you then are creating a completely new DNA. So now you're creating a DNA which, and also note, when you bridge, you have to have the other application give those public APIs too, which means the original holofuel needs to know that your new holofuel wants to bridge to it. So you can't bridge to it unless both decide to bridge to it. So there's a whole change, the complete change in like a lot of pieces just to do that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I want to clarify on this, because I heard that if you wanted and you had the resources to, you could essentially create your own parallel hosting network, parallel to Holo. And then, hi, am I still here?
Yeah, we are
okay.
hearing you.
Okay, sorry. And then you are not using Holofuel, or maybe you are, but it's totally independent from the Holo infrastructure at I don't know what levels. Because maybe that's a little more what could serve Jakub's needs. Like creating, if you have maybe 5-10 holo ports in your city and you want to create your own local holo in a sense. Is that will that be a possibility?
So not really, because yes, you can do what you just said. You can create a parallel hosting infrastructure apart from Holo, which does its own thing. That's completely possible. But the thing is, if you're still running the same DNA, you're still going to connect to the same DHT, whether you're running it on the new hosting or the old hosting or locally. You run it anyway. If you're running the same DNA, you're going to connect to the same guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Alex, I remember you wanted to ask something. Is it already covered, or you still have your question? Where is Alex? Okay, it seems he's not here anymore. So I think we have still. Hey guys, do you have any question? I think there are still some question inside.
Yeah, I think
there are some questions on the chat. I didn't really look at it. Have I answered them?
Please, if you see anything that you can cover, please, we are gonna be really happy.
I think in the chat there is still some confusion around encrypted and decrypted data. Mainly, where is that process done? Is it done on Chaperone in the browser, or is it done on the conductor when leaving the conductor? If, for example, we are making a get entry on a encrypted entry. I think that sums up. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're talking about encrypted entries, it is getting encrypted in the conductor. But if you're talking about just signing your payload, that happens in Chaperone for the hosting system.
Okay, I'm curious. Then the conductor has the private key of the user?
No, it does not.
And with which private keys is it encrypting? Is it encrypting or decrypting?
Okay, so the conductor, yes. Oh yeah, so basically what that does, it sends back a request to Chaperone to, well, it sends back a request to Envoy, basically, that is the wormhole, which actually signs it back and responds back. Yes, I apologize, I missed that part.
Okay, so it goes from the conductor to Chaperone through Envoy, right? The wormhole, Envoy, yes. And then it comes back to the conductor as plain text.
Yeah.
Okay.
And can you also a few sentences about how the private key is supposed to be managed? It means there is a process to reach. It means regenerate private key all the time. It is coming from the safe seed. It means we know a public key. We are, as far as I know from some document, when user calling something, we need to know what is the actually private key. So it means anytime we cannot say private key any place, and also user in a holoport scenario didn't install anything to maintain private key. So based on our understanding till now, that a process supposed to regenerate private key always. It means we know what is the public key. We are asking a user, we are going to generate how we are right now in a centralized fashion is saving something like a passport or something, and a user can use that one with the combination of public key to regenerate again the private key. It is our understanding. Can you a little bit just clear it up how the things are working?
Okay, so the way that works is it actually generates the key in Chaperone. Like I said, Chaperone is an iframe. It's a secure iframe. So every time you sign in, you enter your email, your password, uses that with the HAP ID, and it generates your keys, and it stores it in in that session. It stores it in the conductor the chaperone iframe. And that's why when you keep making Zoom calls, it actually goes through the chaperone, and chaperone already has your private key over there, which is in your browser. Note, it is in your browser, that means private key is going nowhere. It is just over there. Signs the key, signs the entries, signs the payloads, and sends it to Envoy, which means when you shut down the session, your keys are gone. You sign in back later on a new device, or probably the same device. It does does the exact same thing. It uses your email, uses your password, and if you put in the right email and the right password, it will create the exact same key.
That is fantastic. It means chaperone. It is totally secure, local, iframe in my browser. Anytime I would like to call a service, I do running the same process. The session is gonna be open. In that session, the private key is there. Anytime the Holo port supposed to sign something, supposed to unencrypt something, supposed to do anything that need my private key, it's coming back to my chaperone, asking for my private key. It's already open inside the session, and receive and continue the job. When the session is closed, private key is gonna be gone and clear. Next session, the same process.
Yes.
Thank you. Again, there is this question about the parameters. I think we already covered this one, yeah?
No,
Go
we
ahead,
actually
please.
didn't.
Go,
Yeah.
go.
So I think, yeah, we are closing all the questions we had on the list. So what parameters will you, as an application developer, will be able to set for Holoports to host? Maybe you don't have them, I don't know, maybe you don't have them in full detail right now, but what sort of parameters you will be able to set? I think you mentioned some, but I'd like a little more detail.
Yes, just give me 1 minute. I'm actually close. I can give you probably a more detailed answer. I'm right now looking at the code itself. And these are, okay. Yeah, so basically there's multiple different preferences that a provider can actually set as what they want. They are how much they want to pay and stuff like that. So stuffs like maximum fuel per invoice, how much you want to pay per invoice, meaning once your service, okay, I've not spoken about service logger, which is a small DNA in the conductor on the host, which basically is tracking how many Zoom calls are made, or basically the stats, and that's what actually creates invoices. So whenever it reaches a particular limit, it will make an invoice to the Holofuel account for the provider, and then the provider has to pay the host. And that's what the service logger does. It just tracks how much Holofuel is being, how much the Holoport is being used, and assigns some value to it. Right now it is in Holofuel. And the preferences, the question was what are the preferences that the provider can provide. One is what's the max limit of the invoice, meaning when my invoice gets to 100 Holofuels, that's when you make an invoice to me so that I can pay you back. The other one is what is the max unpaid value, meaning how much, at what point should you just stop hosting my application because I have not paid you $1,000. Preferences like that per unit. Right now, how much I'm willing to pay per unit, and the unit has to be decided. Yet we haven't decided that for the alpha phase. We're just talking about per zones. So per zone we are assigning a price. So zone call. I'm sorry, per zone call. Meaning if you make 10 zone calls, let's say you're paying 0.10 Holofuel at this point. This is just for alpha. Later on is going to be based on different matrices, basically values, depending on CPU bandwidth and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the different preferences. Basically, how much you want to pay per unit, and per invoice, how much at what pay stage do you want to actually pay every 10,000 holo fuels, every 20,000 holo fuels, and how much you're willing to pay. That's it.
Could it also be geographical? Like, is that option going to be offered?
Uh, it can be offered. Right now, that is not high preferences. We don't
Okay.
have a list of that. So don't think this is the only things that is possible or something like that. It's definitely there are way more features that can
Yeah.
be added. Right now, we don't have that listed down.
Okay.
So
Like,
another question that for the next first version or then the coming version, Holoport is the only way for running app, or what is any solution for a mobile to run application on mobile? It is a Holoscape. Holoscape is totally for the development. It is part of the solution for non-Holoport. Is that a question, right question for you this session or not?
I didn't get the question.
It means how is it if we are going to install application on mobile without Holoport, how we are going to run it? Holoscape, so what? How?
Okay, so right now, yeah, we don't support Androids yet. So that is not possible right now, but yeah, hopefully, I mean, right now you can, with the hosting infrastructure, you can probably run it on your mobile, because obviously all you need is a web browser. So if you have a web browser on your mobile, you can use your hosted application, but you cannot run it locally on a Android or, well, any mobile right now.
Just as a hint, if they are going to be supported, Holoscape, it is part of the answer, or no, it is totally another solution?
Well, Holoscape honestly just gives you a simple framework in which it actually just gives you easy features to use the conductor. It's basically just running a local conductor for you. That's all it is. So it is a solution, but also it is more of a UI solution. So once we are able to, the main point is when we are able to run a conductor on an Android phone, uh, that is when we can actually use Holochain on a whole or just on a phone. That is the point. It doesn't really depend about on Holoscape as such.
Thank you. Guillaume, about the mobile question?
I think Alex had a question about what components should you put in your front end code, actually, your app or something like that. But I assume it's only the Chaperone library you need to include, at least right now, right?
Well, not really. It's not the Chaperone library. Yes, it does include the Chaperone, but it's just Web SDK. There's just one npm library called Web SDK that we need to include, which includes everything else. Basically, it includes Chrome, it includes the Chaperone iframe, and everything else.
Alex, do you have any question here, or you had a question? I called you one time, you were offline. Is there anything you would like to continue, please?
I think the knowing about like the chaperone and the web API is helpful. My device died for a minute, but I think that clears it up for me right now. I will ask if I have any other questions.
Awesome.
Jim, do you have any question? Do you think, because you were not here at the beginning, I saw you had a question. I didn't find the time. Please just give us the title of question to see we already covered or not.
I typed into the chat. I'll just read my question that I typed in the chat there. Good morning, Joel. Thank you for coming today. I believe I heard that when you were answering Guillaume and Jacob, that you said that it's possible to run a private network of Holo. So I could run Holo on various servers. And then I heard you say that the DNA would still connect to the rest of Holo. So apparently I could run Chaperone in a bunch of browsers, and I could connect to a private network of a bunch of Holos, and then my whole private network would be patched into Holo. Is that what I heard correctly?
Okay, so I think the answer question for in that space was, can we? It's sort of two different questions. One was when can we host differently than Holo itself, not Holochain, just Holo itself? Can we have a completely different hosting service? Yes, we can. But when we are running a conductor and hosting, if we are still running and spinning up the same SIM2H, and we're connecting to the same SIM2H and running the same DNA, that's when you're actually connecting to any other running DNAs. So whether it is running on the Holo infrastructure or your new infrastructure, it doesn't depend. It doesn't depend on that. Am I?
Okay, so so the Holo connects to SIM2H, is that you just said?
Well, your DNA the conductor connects to SIM2H. The conductor SIM2H to basically that now the networking framework that is used layer.
So my scenario is that I have a bunch of servers and they're around the country, and I have a private network going of a bunch of business users that I'm running private networks for, Postgres databases, business systems. And that application is independent from what we're talking about here. But when the application comes up, I can load whatever kind of JavaScript that I want into the front end along with the business application. And what I'm trying to facilitate is I want to give these business users that on the one hand, they have their private Postgres that they're in. I want to give them a portal from the same, I can craft the JavaScript and the user interface around it so that they have a portal both into their private world and into the Holo world. Mm-hmm. And in order to give them a portal into the Holo world, it seems like what I'm going to do is I'm going to load Chaperone or make that whatever that one dependency was that you said. I would make sure that that gets loaded in with the rest of my JavaScript. And then there'll be some iframe that, I can call into the iframe. The user doesn't have to type into there. I could call into there and supply their user and password as they enter it to me. And then that thing should connect to but it doesn't even have to connect to, I don't have to run physical Holo ports that I grabbed with Holo Fuel. I can run the Holo port software on my servers. I have servers, they're private servers in data centers, Linux servers. So I could run, I can have containers running. I could run a container on my Linux server in San Francisco. I could run a container on my Linux server in Albuquerque, and run an instance of Holo on each one. And then these various chaperones that the people are getting as part of their browser load could connect to those. And then those would be patched into the rest of Holo, people running Holoport and all that. Am I following correctly, or?
It's sort of. The thing to remember over there is your chaperone is going to be using a resolver to actually resolve to which Holoport you're actually connecting to. So if you're using the resolver that Holo is using, it's going to be random. You cannot decide which Holoport it is connecting to. So even if you have 1,500 Holoports running on your farm somewhere, you don't know whether it's going to be connected to that. So you would have to write your own resolver to actually resolve to that. So your chaperone would have to resolve to point to, okay, please talk to this Holoport itself.
So I can write my own resolver.
You would have to
force the chaperone to resolve, because I don't want to charge my people Holo Fuel. They're already paying me in another way. They're gonna have access to this network, All right, Guillaume is raising his hand. It must be that I got something wrong there.
Yeah, no, and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong, but the users are not paying HoloFuel. You are paying HoloFuel to host your app on the Holoports. The users don't pay anything. The same way that you pay your data centers, it's the same. So if you're worried about that, yeah, that's another concern maybe.
I can just add, like, if Jim, I think this same use case can be really helpful for community that wants to run an app and host privately, right? And they want the data to be held within their community and not be publicly hosted. And I can think of a lot of use cases like that.
But also not.
I think I would have some of both. I would have I would have one DNA that only goes amongst the people on my network, so that only my Holos that I'm running on my servers, only those would be the only places that host that DNA, and I would need a special resolver for that. But then I would want to connect to other DNA, because I want to give the people access to talk to not only people that are in my network, but to people that are all over on Holo.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks, Joel. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah. So actually, I think we are almost more than 1 hour. It's close. Let me ask this question and close. Is there any topic about how many DNA it is? Because recently we recognize some people really, how can I say, telling that unlimited DNA. It means for anything DNA. Is there any limitation on conductor in the Holoport? It means how many DNA it is. Is there any trade-off number of DNA on the conductor in the Holoport, or is there any limitation? Or
Well, I think yes, of course, there should be a limit, because it's basically just depends on how much your where you're running your conductor actually can process. So depending on that, how many zone calls it can handle at one shot, what's your CPU, what's your clock speed, it depends on all of that. Yeah, I don't know. I have never tested how many DNAs I can run at one shot, so I don't have a good answer for that. And I have not spoken to anyone about running the maximum amount of DNAs yet.
Thank you. Guillaume, if there is something at the end, please.
Yeah, like just came to me because there was also some in the chat some question about this. It's around networking. Are you planning to still use Syn2H for the Holo Alpha network? And in the future, if Live3H arrives, how will the Bootstrap work? The same of normal Holochain apps?
Yes, it should just be the same. Just you patch it into the conductor, and instead of talking to Syn2H, you'll be talking to Live3H.
Okay, and you're still going to use Syn2H for the Holo Alpha network?
The alpha releases right now, yes.
Okay, thanks. I'm done here, Hedayat.
So thank you.
One more. Can
you, Jim, please, really tighter question, because the question really short. Let's see, because it's more than 1 hour, and short question, really short.
Can you discuss how a Holo user would do backup and restore?
Okay, so the backup and restore is in data redundancy. You don't have to restore, because it is your data is always backed up somewhere between the 5 posted instances. So yeah, that's how it is handled right now. And like I mentioned earlier, we haven't really focused on that yet, so I don't have a precise, very detailed answer for that. But right now, well, last I heard, general idea was it needs to be stored between five different hosts in different shards.
So thank you, Yuan. We really, really appreciate. I think you covered a lot of questions that we had. So we are gonna be a little bit rude to give a promise from you that maybe later on, a little bit later, that we can again, if there is a possibility, we can ask you, invite you again after a while, not really soon. That if there is any question, we really would like to again invite you to come here and hackathon. And did you enjoy today, or we are a bad guy? So
I wish I could hear more questions from everyone. Honestly, thanks for calling, inviting me, and I'm happy to join later on if we have time. It's just recently we've been a little more heads down, sort of. So I've not really spent a lot of time on Zoom. Honestly, even stand-ups are like 15 minutes, and I'm off. But yeah, it was really fun to talk to you guys. And I'm happy to join if we have more questions later on. Please don't refrain from doing that.
thank you, Yuan. Really, we really love you and all the people working on this fantastic product. And I hope that really in a good time we are again inviting you and other guys to come and to make us happy with your nice answer. And guys, thank you for all of you, to all of you that joined, and thank you for your patience to following the template that we went. I hope, like me, you learned a lot. So I would like just to close. Gian, do you have anything you would like to mention? Or
Yeah, sure. Joel, it's been amazing. I think you've saved us actually something like weeks or maybe even some months of experimentation and discussion here at the rhythm that we normally go. It's absolutely amazing to have someone like you here ready to answer our questions, and we will look forward to talking with you and the core dev people again, and hopefully soon let's see if we can do it in person in hackathons or things like that, because I miss these kinds of events are really great. You know, we have to be careful about the virus, but yeah, let's hope we can do that someday.
Right. Can I ask if you guys can have some kind of feedback loop set up between, I don't know, Hidayat, Joel, and Guillaume? Because I feel like it'll be really helpful.
Sure. There is a thread we are going to upload. Definitely, it is a forum. Forum is our home. You can send any feedback about that. It is okay, like always. So we are going to discuss in the thread forum, okay? Because it is like always, it is open. Session 13, this session we are uploading. Guys, next hackathon, like always, we are gonna go back to the normal time next Wednesday at 6, and also we can go for a 30-minute to recap everything happened today. It means, hey guys, I didn't understand this one. Anybody else got the point? Hey, can you explain me how was the bridging topic? It means do not get the topic cold, okay? Next week, please write it down your question. It is the collective intelligence. Some things I didn't understand, Lily understood something, Josh understood, you know? Please bring all your questions. Let's accumulate all the knowledge that UL gave us to review everything, going for the deep knowledge. It means, please, let's practice more. Let's practice more. Again, thank you, UL. And if you would like to end up the session, the end goes to you, UL, please.
Oh, I don't have anything. It's just an inspiration to see you guys do this. It's awesome. Honestly, I don't get time to really like spend time just talking about Holochain, and it's always fun to just talk Holochain sometimes. I get into the weeds and it's just like, okay, I'm dealing with a very, very small topic and it's just fun to talk about the global picture. So don't think this is like, it was any sort of annoying to me. It was amazing. I just enjoy this. Thank you.
Thank you again. Have a nice evening, morning, noontime, midnight, Sid. Bye-bye, guys.
Ciao.
Yes, thank you. See you soon.
Hello.
See you guys.
If
See you.